Welcome back to Hog and Daddy Podcast.
Hog and Daddy. Do we need a theme song?
We don't. We should create.
Can that be it? Hog and Daddy.
Yeah, that'll be it. I'm Hog.
I'm Daddy.
And
Also, what were you calling me? Tubbs?
Tubbs, Bigums.
Bigums. You have all the fun names.
I have the fun names. Dunlope de Hog, Hoggus Pigus, Pigus Hoggus, Suscrofa.
Yeah.
Lord
Hogbartholomew? Hogbert, yeah.
Hogbert the Third. Plenty of
Space Hog.
Space, that's a new one. Hogzilla.
Space Hog's not a new one. We've definitely talked about that before.
they're all-
Hogzilla, I like.
That's a good one.
King Dong
King
is one of
Dong.
my nicknames.
King Dong. You wish.
Yeah. I also have Fat Boy because Sammo Hung, because they call him Fatty all the time. I want to be like Sammo.
Sam's a cool dude.
I'm not nearly as cool as him.
No, I'm saying you look like him in terms of fat, but not cool.
But do I? Because he moves really well.
He carries his
And
fat
I'm just
better
like a
than you.
broken. Yes, that's a good way to say it.
He
carries his fat much better than I do.
So he like a well-fed lion, like graceful and athletic. You're like an overweight peacock who's just like passed down.
It's not like a flamingo or
Yeah, like it's one of those birds that just like eats a ton and their gut is like huge.
Wait, birds have guts?
I guess, probably.
No, they don't.
Where's the
they don't
food
have
go?
guts.
Where's the foods go?
I mean, they literally have like a stomach area, but they don't get fat guts like people do they?
Then you'd be like,
Have you ever seen an overweight bird? Now that you mention it, I'm not sure I ever have.
maybe. Well, I know a better example. You're like a newborn kitten after it eats, and then its gut
Oh, it's
is
like all, exactly.
That's
And it's just all awkward.
and it has like the little skinny legs.
But they're really cute.
It's like a Mr. Potato.
I'm really cute. That's exactly what I look like. I tell people that my body
Whoops.
type is like I'm a potato with toothpicks for arms and legs, and my head is a grape.
You got to get big. Got to go to the gym and get big.
It's hard to find time. I've been
like-
riding my bike recently.
I like going to the gym and getting big. Anyway, I think what
What
we're
are we
gonna
talking about today? Yeah.
We're going to discuss. So
Is it my special trip?
we are going to talk about your sister. So if everyone who's watching doesn't know, me and Will both have masters in film. He does screenwriting. I did more producing and writing, more for the TV.
Mm-hmm.
We've both worked somewhat in the field. We've both,
Adjacent field,
Adjacent,
industry adjacent. Yeah,
we've both written a lot of stuff. And
That's true.
recently,
no, I forgot because they added me to IMDb for the movie I wrote.
it's on IMDb.
I'm the Cutting Room
Oh, yeah,
is
yeah,
on
yeah.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
Which is a web series that Mike produced.
Actually, I rewatched some of it. It actually looks pretty good.
But you cut out some of my best dialogue from my episodes that I wrote.
I couldn't.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
We had to keep it somewhat tame, you swine. Yeah, like and subscribe. We hate saying it, but I guess it does help. Anyway.
The same thing happened to me on the thing
Yeah.
we're about to talk about.
So anyway,
Yeah.
Will recently, along with one of his friends who lives in Mexico,
Well, he actually lives in
Miami
the
now.
United States now. But yeah,
but they wrote a film together.
we did.
And they raised some money and they filmed it.
Well, we shouldn't say they raised some money. I was not involved in the producing of it at all.
So that's kind of the setup. Why don't you correct everything I've said wrong?
Yeah, sure.
And tell us the story, and I'll ask you some questions.
Okay, let's do it. My friend's name is Inigo, which I say Inigo. There's a tilde on the end. So
I say
everyone who
Inigo.
speaks Spanish tells me I'm
just say
mispronouncing it.
Indigo.
Yeah. Inigo. So he and I met when we were interns at Pantaleon, which is a company that's half owned by Lionsgate, half owned by Televisa. And they do movies like Pulling Strings, Instructions Not Included, that are for like the bilingual English, Spanish-speaking market.
Okay.
The reason I ended up there, have I ever told you the story about how I got that internship?
No.
So I was interning at Grindstone at Lionsgate.
You might have, but
You don't remember anything.
I don't remember
Yeah, so Grindstone is a company within Lionsgate that does a couple of their movies have been theatrically released, but most of their stuff is like straight to streaming, and it's usually like heist movies, cop thrillers. They've done some horror, but they've done stuff with like John Cusack, Nick Cage, Bruce Willis. They had a deal for a bit with 50 Cent, where he like gave a certain amount of money and they were producing movies. Robert De Niro has been in some of their movies. Al Pacino. But they're like typically like the lower budget straight to streaming ones. And some of their movies are actually really good. But so I was interning there, and the guy who was my supervisor went out to smoke a cigarette and came back. And he was like, I just smoked a cigarette with Diego Luna and Gael Garcia Bernal. This was before Andor. So, and before Rogue One, before Diego Luna was like a bigger star in this country. And I was like, what are they doing here, right? Because this is only a couple years after I moved back from Mexico. I'm a huge Alfonso Cuarón fan. They're both in Y tu mamá también. They're in Rudo y Cursi, which is a film that Alfonso Cuarón's brother directed. So, and obviously Gael is in Amores Perros and all these other things. So he told me that the two of them were trying to work something out with Pantaleon so they could have a deal together. And I was like, I got to find out more about Pantaleon. So I went over and talked to the Pantaleon people. I had like a coffee meeting with the assistant to their head of development. And I thought we were just talking. And after the meeting, she was like, so we'll take you next semester as an intern. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, sweet.
So that's how I ended up getting that gig.
Dang. I wish it was always that easy.
Right? I know. So that's where I met Inigo. He had just moved to LA. He's younger than me. So he had just finished undergrad. I was in grad school. And
Younger, thinner, more handsomer.
Everything better.
Everything.
Taller.
Successful.
More successful.
Well-spoken, friendlier.
Everything. Much friendlier.
Everything.
Much friendlier. Literally everything.
Not one good thing you're better at.
I don't have anything. No.
No. You're
Not a single thing.
more gassy.
That's true.
Fatter.
Bigger. Yeah,
Bigger.
I take up more space. I have more mass,
Dude,
so I
that's
have
so
more
bad.
gravity.
It's not a single thing.
I have better glasses than he does because he doesn't need them. Does that count?
I mean, it does.
Let me
right,
talk about
anyway.
it. So Inigo, we just became really good friends, and we had never actually worked together except for Los Angeles, which you were also on, which is a whole other story that we can talk about some other time.
Yo.
But other than that, he and I had never worked together on anything. We were just really good friends. And every now and again, he would call me and be like, "Oh, I have this script. Do you mind reading it?" Or it was typically outlines more than it was scripts. He's like, "I have an outline for an idea. Can you look at it and tell me what you think about it?" And we would talk and whatever. And then he called me. This was like maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
He called me and was like, "So I kind of already knew that he had been raising money for a feature and that he had decided to independently produce and direct a feature." And he told me that he had the script. He had already raised the budget for it. Like the money was there.
Impressive.
He put together a really attractive pitch deck. So actually, I should say, we should go back from that. I gave him some notes on the pitch deck. He sent me the pitch deck, and I gave him some notes on that. And he took that around and raised the budget for the movie.
With a pitch deck.
Yeah. And he had like a document that was about 60 pages that was kind of just him writing out what he envisioned to be the story. It was scenes. It was in final draft, like it was a script.
Right.
But it wasn't really like the complete script, right? It was just kind of like, this is what I envision.
Yeah. And quickly, just before you go on, a lot of people probably don't know anything about the film industry. When you're pitching, you're generally not just going to a meeting, giving someone a script, and they're reading it.
Yeah,
and
no.
You generally go in with a pitch deck, which has like a synopsis.
It's like a PowerPoint, basically.
Yeah, it's basically a presentation of what the film is, what it's going to look like. So you take pictures from other films like Tone, who are the characters, what are the comparisons, all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what you use to try and sell movies.
Worth mentioning. So Inigo, at some point, I think this was like maybe 2018, he and his wife moved to Mexico City. And he started doing work there. He was working for Pantaya, which is like a Spanish language streaming service that I think Lionsgate either owns or is partnered with.
Right.
He was helping produce content in Mexico, and he also directed some music videos. So he was working in the industry very actively while he was down there. So obviously that opens a lot of doors that you can actually go in and pitch people and they'll listen to you. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Go on.
So
It's the quantity I was talking about.
So he had the pitch deck. He had the idea for the story. He had the characters. He had the world. He had the arc.
Everything.
Like the character's arc was all mapped out. He had just never written a script before, so he didn't really know how to put that on the page, right? So he called me and asked me if I would give him notes on the script. And so I said, yeah, of course. This is actually funny. He was telling this story. When I was down in Mexico, he was telling the story to some of the actors in the movie while we were standing around on the set. And he told them that I sent him back, and I had forgotten this, 10 pages of notes, which is a lot for a 60-page.
Yes.
Right? And he said that what he tells, I think that Inigo he's very kind and friendly and generous. I think he's a little bit too generous because I think that he doesn't want to like give himself all the credit. Right. But what he was telling these actors on the set was that I was able to see the movie. He said that when he saw my notes on the script, that was the first time that anyone other than him had looked at the material for the movie and seen it as a movie and like realized that there was a first act, second act, third act, sequences, all the story beats, like everything was there. It just needed to be clarified.
Right.
And that gave him a lot of confidence in the material and it got him really excited. So he was telling people like, oh, I understood the themes better than him. I don't think any of that is true at all. I think he's just, he's very generous.
Trying to help Fatty.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He feels bad for it.
For it. So he asked me if I would write the movie with him. And at that time, as Inigo knows, because I had a long conversation with him about this, I had given up on screenwriting. Because, I'm working on my novel. I won a writing contest at this point, it was like almost 5 years ago. But so I'm currently writing the second draft of my novel. I was writing it earlier today. And so that's coming along. And I've been having meetings for like 18 months with the publishing company and everything. I was like, this is going somewhere. Right. And the screenwriting thing is like basically dead. Like I had pilots that had been picked up for shopping deals with production companies, right? Which means basically like they have the right to show it around. And they were like, Lot 19 was a production company, which was Nicole Fox and Richard Reiner. You worked with them. Is it like stuff like that was happening, but nothing was ever going anywhere, right? So like, let me just do the novel writing. Maybe the screenwriting thing is not happening right now.
And just what I've been around with other people, with my roommate who's trying to get films off the ground, with other friends of ours.
You're worth mentioning that your roommate is not just like some random person who's like, she has connections to people who fund films and like
and what I've known is
and stuff.
Until you physically have the money in your hand, there's no guarantee. It's so hard to go from this is a great idea, everyone's on board, you got your actors, your locations, to go from that to a EP or money person to actually send you that money is so freaking hard. And these deals fall apart all the time. So yeah, you could write 20 great screenplays and win these contests and all this stuff until someone actually pays you for your script, makes it, and it's a hit, and then you sign like a deal with a studio. It's so hard. Yeah,
and it's nothing. The thing is, because a lot of people, I think, get very quickly demoralized.
Yes.
So why am I still writing like 10 years after we finished grad school when I've had no success thus far up until this point, like really when these things are actually happening, is that I kept telling myself, and this is what really happened when I won the writing contest, I kept telling myself, I just need to find the one person in the world who likes what I am doing. And it just so happened that I entered this contest and the guy who owns this publisher, he's the CEO and the founder of the publishing company, was like, I like this story and I see the potential of it. And that was like the one person I needed to get out there. So Inigo asked me if I would write the script with him. I hemmed and hawed on it for like a day or two. I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, screw it. Like Inigo's a great person. He's a really good friend of mine. They paid me.
Yeah,
and it wasn't his personal money. That was part of it too. I was like, I don't want you to pay me. I was like, no, like we have a budget. Like you don't have to worry about it. It's going to come from the corporation. Like I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So I wrote my version of the script all in English, sent it to him. Originally, the movie was going to be only in Spanish.
Okay.
And then he decided, because he and his siblings are, and his wife too, is really interesting. I saw this moment on set where his wife is in the movie. She's an actor. He was directing her, and they were kind of clarifying a point in the scene. And they were going from English to Spanish in the middle of a sentence, just depending on
I do that with Russian.
Like whichever language was better for articulating what they needed to articulate, they would switch.
For me, it's sometimes because I was 5 when I moved, and I'm speaking Russian, and I forget how to say something. I'll just switch to English.
Yeah. So so Inigo kind of had this moment at some point during the writing process where it occurred to him that it might be more true to his experience and also more interesting to do the movie back and forth in both languages. So it's in English and Spanish. But so he did a Spanish script, and then I would kind of go over it in English and stuff like that. And so we wrote the script. It's been filming in 4 stages. So the very first footage ever shot was shot before the script was done, because Inigo had this vision and he knew that there was like a certain kind of thing that he wanted to capture, and that he could do that with just him and the cinematographer in his apartment if he dressed it up like a set. Okay. That was shot 2 years ago.
Wow.
So right now it's June. I don't know when people are going to watch this. Last August, so August of 2024, they shot for I think like 2 weeks in Mexico City. Then there was a big break. And then they shot in a place called Mixcalticlan, which is, I'm probably mispronouncing that, which is in Nayarit, which is one of the states in Mexico. And it's a city that is on an island in a lake.
Okay.
It's really, really cool looking.
That's
so this,
cool.
it's like it's not a huge city, but it's very dense. There's like buildings filling up this whole island in this massive lake. And then the final 3 days of shooting was in Mexico City, May of 2025. So at some point after because the Mexicalticlan section of that section of filming, I think it was for about a week that they were down there, that went extremely well. Inigo had a great time on set. Like the people in the town were like really excited that they were filming there. They got a lot of good like press from it. And he was texting me about how amazing everything is going. I was seeing footage, and it was like, I mean, the budget for this, I don't want to say the budget's out low, what is being made public and stuff like that, but the budget is very small.
It's a low budget film.
And to see what they were able to do with that budget, to some of the footage that came back, like really blew me away. And I just texted him like, because I've wanted to make movies really. I know like everyone changes their mind a ton, but like when I was in 3rd grade, I was 9 years old. I saw Terminator 2, and I sat down and I wrote Terminator 3 because I was like, I want to know what's next and I don't want to wait for it. So that since I was 9 years old, I have wanted to write stories, make movies, and be involved.
Oh my God. For a podcast episode, we should read that script.
And if I can find it, we totally should. So I illustrated it too.
Oh my God, yes.
So I texted Inigo and I was just like, it's like kind of a bummer that the first thing I've ever written that's been produced of this like lifelong dream of mine. And I mean, both of us came to grad school in 2012. It's been 13 years since I've been like working every day towards this, right? And it's actually happening, and it's such a long distance, and there's been so many failures and so many almost things that you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That it doesn't. It's very surreal.
It doesn't feel real,
right?
Until it's done. And
so I just texted him that I was like, I'm kind of bummed that I'm gonna miss the filming of like the first thing ever that I co-wrote. Obviously, it wasn't my original idea, but he was just like, just get your ass down to Mexico.
Hell yeah!
Because we're doing 3 more days of filming. Flights are not that expensive. We'll help you find a place to stay. And so I did. And my passport was expired, which was a whole other part of I'm a dual citizen. Right, so I have the British passport and I have the U.S. passport, but you cannot enter the U.S. on a foreign passport if you are a U.S. citizen. So I couldn't go on the British passport.
Okay.
With an expired American passport, I had to go to the federal building on Wilshire at like 7 a.m. and wait in this massive line to see if they were willing to expedite my passport.
Oh, because you kind of decided this very shortly.
Well, so
you were supposed to fly?
What ended up happening was the dates weren't set in stone until like 2 weeks before.
Gotcha.
So then he finally got me the dates, and I was like, okay. So I went to the federal building, and I was able to show them proof that I was going to Mexico. So they gave me a passport in 2 days.
Okay, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Because usually it takes a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, I went to there's like a thing that you can do where if you have a travel date within 14 days, for people who don't know who are watching or listening to this, I lived in Mexico for about 10 months many years ago. And so I stayed in a neighborhood called Roma. The Alfonso Cuarón film is filmed in and about the neighborhood Roma, but I had a good friend in Mexico City many years ago who lived in Roma. So it's a neighborhood that I know, that I'm familiar with.
It?
So I was really excited about that. So I watched the Cuarón movie on the airplane. And I got down to Mexico. I checked into my Airbnb. There was like this kind of like, I came through the airport, obviously. And it's interesting because when I came through the exact same gate that I came through when I moved to Mexico.
Right.
And so I remembered everything that I was looking at in the terminal, and I had all this wave of nostalgia and stuff. I got an Uber. And so one of the very first scenes in Y Tu Mamá También, which is one of my favorite movies ever, is filmed right outside the airport in Mexico City. So we drove like down the street where so like right away I'm like,
that's cool,
geeking out about movie stuff. I get to the Airbnb, and there's this weird hang up where the woman who was letting me in works for this company that owns the apartment, right? And the people who own the apartment are like paranoid that it's not clean enough. So they're making her go around and clean everything and take pictures of it and send them to her. So she's like dusting the couch and so I'm just like standing there for like 45 minutes
you're a
waiting.
Fat pig,
right? I told her like 100 times, like, it's really okay. You don't have to do it. She's like, no, they're making me, basically. So while she was doing that, I Googled the locations for the movie Roma, the Cuarón movie, the main location, which is the house that the family lives in, was like 10 blocks south of my Airbnb.
Oh, that's cool.
So I was like, let me just go for a walk, get outside. I went down, I saw the location, I took a picture of it. So already I'm like, and Mexico City is just such an incredible, beautiful, like amazing city. It's so dense and the sprawl is so huge. You almost like can't believe it. It's so massive.
That's how I felt when I got to Beijing.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what
dude,
Beijing is like. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
There's a raised highway in Mexico City, right? So I like went up on this highway that's like stories above the city. And you look down and you see like there's an other slightly raised freeway under it. And then below that, there's a slightly low, like there's all these layers. It's almost like I said to Inigo while we were down there on set, I'm like, we need to write a Mexico City cyberpunk movie. Because this is like a cyberpunk city. Like there's all these levels to it. There's like these huge gleaming skyscrapers. And then there's like, you know, these like shanty towns in the hills and stuff like that.
And we live in LA. It's not exactly a small city, but it's not.
The thing about LA does not have the density of Mexico City.
Or
and
Tokyo.
That's what's so astonishing to me about, because Mexico City has like the sprawl of LA, but it's the density of like New York or something.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. So then I was texting with one of the people working on the movie named Fernanda, and she told me she gave me the address of the studio, and she's like, just take an Uber to the studio. So like, okay. So I take an Uber down to the studio. It's like this huge metal gate. I'm like hammering on the gate. You have to have a QR code to get in. Have you ever seen this before?
No.
So the security guy had to scan my QR code to let me in. And then he's like, what's your name? All of this is taking place in Spanish. And I tell him my name, and he's like, well, he was so confused by my last name. He ended up just spelling it Keis or something like that. And I was like, that works for me if it works for you. So I did not realize, I mean, I know that, so Inigo called in a lot of favors from a lot of people he's done a lot of work with to make this movie happen. And he's also just a really great, friendly, positive person who people really want to work with, right? I didn't realize how far his budget and his connections were going until I got down there. They're filming in a legitimate, like, massive studio space.
Nice.
Green screen walls everywhere. They've got the Steadicam operator.
That's good.
Everything was shot on Steadicam the whole time I was there.
I like that.
Yeah.
like
and
that. I prefer Steadicam.
Have you seen those, like, new Steadicam rigs where it's straight up and down, but you can flip it 360 degrees in a circle.
Nice.
And then the camera itself tilts up and down. Like you could do anything with it. Like and it spins
and
too.
To me, yes, there's a certain aesthetic of laying down dolly track and having a dolly in, dolly out, smooth motion.
Yeah.
It's so freaking time consuming to do that. And I hate the really shaky cam stuff.
I hate that stuff.
So the handheld stuff. Steadicam to me is the perfect balance of having mobility and moving, but still being kind of smooth and have nice shots.
Some of the shots that they got, this is actually something I wanted to talk about, just like the collaboration and the being on a film set. But so there's literally an airplane at this movie studio in case you want to do airplane stuff, like a full airplane just sitting there. They have a pirate ship against a green screen.
Dope.
It's called Quarry Studios because it's literally in a quarry. So it's like 100 feet below street level. You drive down this huge ramp and there's these massive rocks everywhere. And they had real catering. Like they had like 5 tents set up. And
Look
people
how
like sitting in it. So
man, they're lucky they didn't invite me.
we had a funny moment where I went up to, like, you know those big orange Gatorade cooler things? And I poured what was in there in it and I drank it and I said to one of the people sitting there, like, I thought this was Jamaica. And they're like, no, it's horchata. And they're like, why did you think it was Jamaica? And I'm like, it says in Japanese Jamaica on it. And they were like, how can you read Japanese? And I'm like, why does it say anything in Japanese? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
None of this
makes sense. I was so confused. So I go into the set and I see Inigo actually, I didn't see him at first. Someone came up to me and they're like, you're Will, right? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, we need to get you into wardrobe. So Inigo had told me he was going to put me in the movie, but I thought he was joking, right? So I have to go into wardrobe, and they've got like all these different costumes for me to try on, and they're like so over the top, like American flag sweaters and screaming eagles, because I'm playing an American character, right?
Hell yeah.
Inigo came in and found me in wardrobe, and we took like a selfie together, and we had like a brief moment of, because I hadn't seen him in person in 7 years.
Damn. Is he astounded by the girth?
He's like, no, you know what he said to me? This is amazing.
What?
I tried one of the costumes on and I was like, oh, I feel so fat in this. And he goes, I've seen you look worse.
It's impossible.
So pig. That's so pig,
That's
though.
really bad.
That's so pig.
I like it.
So,
Respect.
But just walking onto the set, and there's the Steadicam operator, there's the DP, the lighting person. They're doing like these smoke effects, and they have these strobing lights, and like the first AD is running around like doing the quiet on set thing, and like it's just such a magical atmosphere. There were like 40 people on set. I thought it was gonna be like 5 or 10 people. It was like legitimately. They had the video village set up and everything. I met a guy who runs a production company down there called Studio Selva, who's also like he's like a director himself, and like. In Wardrobe, I met one of the main actors in the movie, and I had seen tons of footage of him, like that Inigo was sending me over. So it was like kind of this surreal thing of like, hey, you're that guy. And he's like, wait, are you Will the writer? And I was like, yeah. And he said, you're a sick fuck. Because they had to take so much filth out of the script I wrote because they're not going to get the rating.
We should maybe up when this film's out and everything and it's beyond. We should post the unedited script somewhere on our page.
Oh, definitely. The filthy one that I wrote.
Filth one.
So
sounds like you had a good time.
It was so one of the things I wanted to mention. Yeah, let me just talk about this really quickly. This is like so. There's a shot in the movie that if I were watching a movie, this particular shot would not be anything that stood out to me. But being on the set, you realize how much collaboration, how much vision, and how much skill goes into like really small things. Like so. There's a shot where a character is holding a phone, right? So the shot starts on the phone, pulls back to frame the actor. Then another actor reaches into frame, grabs the phone, and then the shot goes to frame on her, right? And it's one continuous motion. You have the Steadicam operator. You have the actors having to know where their marks are and how they're in frame. You have the guy who's like the second camera who's got his hand on the Steadicam guy to tell him when to back up and how far to back up. Yeah, exactly. You have the focus puller. The DP is watching the shot, right? Like all of these people are involved.
Oh, yeah.
And they did like 4 different takes of this shot.
Probably have a script supervisor watching everything.
Oh, well, I mean, there's all these
where's
people
the
involved.
finger? Yeah,
right,
yeah.
exactly, yeah. So... and actually the guy who's the post-production supervisor, who's the editor on the film, he was there. And they would go up to him and be like, if we do this shot, will it edit together with this other thing? Like there'd be moments where they're like, if we shoot it this way, can we match it to this, or can you do the VFX right? And he'd be like, yes or no. And like there's all these conversations happening constantly, right? But one of these takes, every person hit everything perfectly, and it was like this beautiful, harmonious thing. And I'm like, I would never watch a movie and look at that shot and be like, that much skill and collaboration went into it. And I think people, like, even I've been on movie sets before. I've been in movies as an actor before. Like, you really don't realize, unless you spend a lot of time. I mean, I was on set for like, the second day I was on set from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m.
Yeah, they're long.
And the first day I was there, I got there at 3. I was there from 3 to 11.
Long day.
And like we went out to talk, me and Inigo and his wife went out to tacos afterwards, and like just amazing sitting on the street in Mexico City at night, like eating incredible food. But
toast where you took dumps.
You're such big because you know what happened.
I know.
So I will tell that story, but I just want to say, like, it almost makes me watch movies differently because you see what goes into it. And like, you know, we years ago, I don't know if you remember this, we did an episode of a different podcast we used to do on Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado. You remember that one with Jim? And we were reading negative reviews of that movie and talking about how people don't really seem to understand how high level of a film that is, right? And just because you might disagree with certain elements of the movie, like thematically or whatever, to say that that's a bad movie is absurd, right? There was one review where they said, it's a shame that they lost Roger Deakins because the shot selection here is not good. And you're like, that. Like what? Like the DP is the only person who has anything to do with shot selection. It's not like editor, like the degree to which the director of photography, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him because the whole visual design of the film, the lighting, like he did so much on set, right? He was involved in everything. But the primary conversations that happen between director and someone about what are we shooting, it was the camera operator and the director. Yeah. And the DP was involved too. But like
so a lot of times the DP will be a cam op, Not always.
Right.
Sometimes.
And well, so I know that Danny
On lower
Boyle,
budget films.
Danny Boyle forces his DPs to be the camera operator.
Yeah.
Because he's like, why would I hire you if you're not going to do
Yeah. So I'm used to seeing the director and the DP talking a lot on set because the DP is the person behind the camera.
Right. So there was I think the DP shot the vast majority of the movie, but they had the Steadicam operator for these 3 days, right? So a lot of the conversations,
That's not the DP.
it was the Steadicam guy and Inigo, and the DP was there, obviously, because he's on set the whole time, watching monitor, whatever. And they're talking about, like, what is the shot? How can we get it using this camera? Can you do this? Can you do this? Get a little bit closer. There's so many collaborative conversations between so many different people. Like the first AD, who I believe she's a director as well of other stuff. Like when the art department came in and was doing a changeover in the scenery, Inigo's working with the actors, he's working with the camera operator, he's working with the DP. He's not looking at like where the art department is putting every single thing. The first AD is looking at monitor, being like, we got to move that lamp a little bit. Like
the first AD is really important on set. They kind of run the set.
Yeah.
The director doesn't really run the set. They're running the actors. They're mostly with the actors and the DP figuring out shots and stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of the nuts and bolts are the AD.
And there's just so many people who have, and it's funny, like I told one of the actors at one point when we were chatting, like, I feel completely useless here. Like I'm literally just standing.
Well, you're an actor
and
a writer.
Well, I went as a writer, primarily. But I said, I feel completely useless. And he said to me, well, for the however many months that you guys were writing the script, all of us were useless. So, but it did feel weird to just be standing there. But then they put me in the, so, okay, I had to tell you about this.
Tell us. This is the longest story ever.
Shouldn't it be? Come on, it's 3 days in Mexico. Make it a movie. Come on. What did you think it was going to be, 5 minutes? You know how I like to talk.
I just wanted the dump story. That's it. That's all I wanted to hear.
So there's a character in the movie who's a racist American.
You.
And that's who they cast me
Okay.
as. I never in a million years thought that I was going to play this character, okay? So
But you knew it because you wrote it.
I knew the character was vile.
Because you wrote it.
Yeah. Well, but
Yeah.
And it's part of like the kind of the thematic fabric of the movie, right? I go down there and they want me to play this guy. So in a room of like 40 Mexican people, as the one American in there, I have to say like racist anti-Mexican dialogue like again and again with the camera right in my face. And I'm like,
man, they really missed out on inviting me for that.
At first I was like, I don't know. I don't like, can I really do this? Because the first day I got there, Inigo was like, we're going to put, because I had trackers all over my face. Inigo's like, we're going to digitally put a helmet over your head. So at first he was like, you might not actually say the lines. We might just ADR it.
And you were like, thank God.
I was like, okay, good. And then he was like, actually, can you do the lines? Like, can you memorize them and say them? So there's two Mexican actors. Like the way the scene is set up, we're like this close to, like closer than you and I are.
Wow.
And I'm looking into their faces, saying this stuff in this room of all these people.
Must be a dream come true.
It was so awful.
It's like a free pass to say the filth that she's in your head.
It was so awful. It was mortifying.
Awesome.
You want the dump story. That's all you want.
I'm just messing around. You took some dumps. You're a vegan, so your dumps aren't that heinous.
They can be.
They can be?
They can be
Well, then
pretty
tell us.
heinous. Yeah. You don't need to hear the dump story.
Tell us.
But
I want to hear it now.
it was an amazing
sold it.
trip. It was an amazing trip. There was going to be a rap party, and they brought in Victoria. Victoria, the Mexican beer. It's like so they brought in a bunch of Victoria, and everyone had a beer together, and we were doing cheers and stuff like that, and then everyone left because they were exhausted, and a lot of them had to be on set the next day, and like no one wanted to stay late. So Inigo was like,
for a lot of those people, they were crew members who those 3 days is just
and it was interesting too, like being the writer, like no one knew I was the writer at first. I just kind of showed up, and then Inigo would introduce me, and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, the writer."
Yeah,
like,
it's cool. I will say, I've on all the short films I've made and all the films I've been involved with where I was a lead role, like a director, producer, something like that, above the line, right? I've always wanted to have, after we wrap, a cigar, drinks, something. Never happens. The second you wrap that final day, everyone just
because they got something. They got
they're
stuff to do.
tired.
They're exhausted.
They're exhausted. They're
They have
tired.
to
They're
work the
just
next day.
bouncing.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, we could have like had a smoke. We could have like sat
Yeah.
around, reminisce about the good times. It's over. The hard stuff's over.
Well, I mean, so Inigo and his wife and I went out to really nice dinner
Yeah.
that night and had some beers and tacos in Condesa, which is this really beautiful neighborhood in Mexico City. It was great. I'm really glad that we did that. It was great. So yeah, I mean, it's like one of the best trips I've ever had, like 3 of the best days of my life. That
sounds pretty
And, I'm
sweet.
glad, and the movie, I can tell you the name of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it has an Instagram account and it's gotten some.
It's on IMDb already, right?
Yeah, and there's been an article and some television coverage in Mexico.
So this isn't
already.
spoiling anything.
No, it's Azteca Murai.
Okay.
La Leyenda de Ultraxis, which means the legend of Ultraxis. So
Okay.
Azteca Murai is Aztec and samurai put together, which is like one of the kind of core thematic elements.
I wonder if we'll be able to watch it on any streaming platforms.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean,
Netflix buys a lot of foreign
when
stuff.
we know more. Oh, I say we. When they tell me more about the strategies, because Inigo is having like meetings every day about release strategy and stuff like
We'll
that.
bring him on a podcast.
Then we absolutely should. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we have to tone down the farts and burps though with him.
No, he'll love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
but that's not really FS. We're just like shitting on each other. All right, maybe for the bonus, tell the quick abbreviated version of the shit.
It's not really that interesting of a story. So when I lived in Mexico, here's the backstory of it. You couldn't, in almost everywhere that you stayed, unless you went to like a really nice hotel that came, because the system can't handle it. So you have to throw it in the trash. But also when I lived in Mexico, in a lot of places, there was no hot water heater. You actually had to click on the heater to warm the water to get. So when I checked into this Airbnb, there's no click to put the water on. So it's just you just have hot water. So I'm like, okay, this must be like a more modern building, right? I didn't ask about the toilet paper thing. So the first night, I'm on set for like 8 hours. I've been eating all this food and stuff. I go to the bathroom and I'm like, shit, I don't know if I can flush toilet paper here. And then I'm looking at the shower like, maybe I don't need to.
You didn't tell me this story at all.
So I just got in the shower. What was the story you were thinking
All
of?
you were telling me is that you just try to hold your dump so you didn't have to do it in public. That was it. I didn't know that you were so filthy that you didn't know if you could flush toilet paper or not. So instead, you just shit in the shower. Or
I didn't shit in the
wait,
I shit in the toilet.
and you didn't wipe at all. You went straight into the shower. I mean, I can't even say anything because I just did the same thing at home in Los Angeles yesterday. I was telling you I had the blunderbuss dump.
Yeah.
The blunderbuss where it's just an explosion of nonsense. And like I could just feel it everywhere on my cheeks, top of my it was just a mess. So I was like
Top of my.
I couldn't I didn't want to use half a roll of TP. So I'm like fuck
You just
yeah.
get in the shower.
And it
No,
sucks because I
exactly.
just showered half an hour before.
But it works.
Anyway, that
It's
was a good
effective.
story. You swine. Do you spread your cheeks to let the water get in there better, or do you use a hand
Is that what you
motion?
do?
How do you get the chunks and stuff?
No
out?
comment.
Yeah, I know you either use a hand or you do the.
Well, there are other things you can do.
Yeah, that's a good story.